our speakers are here volunteering their time, just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. So we are very grateful for them, and we'll give them a big thank you at the very end. We encourage you to keep connected with them. I know a couple of you know them in person, are friends with them. So that's really awesome that you're here just to come listen. So we're here to learn, to satiate your wanderlust, and to have fun. So with that said, Jane and Jean are two sisters who went in 2019 to Cambodia to do a tuk-tuk adventure, and we cannot wait to hear all about it. The Cambo Challenge was inspired by The Amazing Race, which is actually, I love that show too. So I'm really, really excited about the Cambo Challenge and hearing a little bit more about your adventures in Cambodia. So if one of you wants to start sharing, you will please take it away.
Okie doke. I'm going to share my screen and
All right.
so everybody, oh wait, here we go. Now you got it, everybody?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'll get started, Janelle, and then flip to you. Just like Maria said, we're sisters. We one thing you should know, we are not professional travelers. We don't have a blog. We don't have even really decent social media. We're just two sisters who like to challenge and like to travel, and we travel well together. So we took on this adventure, and it was Janelle kind of found it. You want to share about that for a second?
So Jane always loved the Great Race show. And she was saying she'd love to do something like that, except she doesn't do height challenges. And I said, well, but the chances of getting on that program are pretty tiny. And I said, I'm sure somebody does something like that. So let me go look up. And I found this company that does adventure races. And gosh, you get to drive a tuk-tuk, which is even better. So we just decided to try it and go for it.
We did. Now, the article I remember that you sent me had several different companies that do things like this. But if I remember correctly, this is the only one where you use a tuk-tuk. The other ones are like you have a car.
I think you're right.
This makes it unique. And we don't work for this company, so we're not here to promote them too much. But it was an excellent experience, which we'll tell you about. They called it the Cambo Challenge. They do trips in Sri Lanka, several in Sri Lanka, India. They do a sailing trip out of the Philippines. But we chose Cambodia. I don't know why, but it sounded like fun. So if y'all aren't, if you don't know what a tuk-tuk is, it's like a little three-wheel vehicle that is basically the taxi of cities in Asia. And so it holds about 3 people. Sometimes you can squish 4 in. And so we had, this is what we traveled in. Janelle, and you want to talk about what it's like to drive it?
So it's kind of like what I understand, and I've never driven a motorcycle, but you squeeze the left side and turn to shift, and the right hand is your gas. So it's all done with your wrists and your hands. There is a brake. And what's interesting is these run on gas, but not gasoline gas. Jane, what was it? Propane?
Well, they called it LP. In the US, we would call it propane.
Propane, yeah.
We call it LP.
Right.
And, which is unusual. That was a whole part of the experience.
So interestingly, they run on propane, but they have a gas backup. And a lot of what we rode through was rural areas that don't have LP because you don't have taxis in the rural areas. So we did at least once have to stop and use our gas backup. So it was interesting. I mean, and what's fun with the challenge is you're responsible for that tuk-tuk. You're responsible if it breaks down. You're responsible to give it gas, to make sure you get gas if you're going into a rural area. So it was actually lots of fun it's like our little steed.
Yeah. And one thing you should know about the company that we want, here's just some pictures of us, is that the company we worked with, they were excellent. They did a lot of the stuff on the front end, like get our visas. We did have to get an international driver's license. We got a great list of what to bring and what to expect. And on the road, they took really good care of us. So these are things, but this was our trip. We started up here at Siem Reap, which is where Angkor Wat is and all that y'all may be familiar with. And then these are places we stopped along the way. Come along over on the right, that's the Mekong River that we came down on the way down. But I think that, like I said, they took really good care of us. So we had this little ambulance that traveled with us with a somebody who was qualified, I guess, to take care of us. It happened. We all did have cell phones that worked locally. So if we had a problem, we could call, or they could call sometimes and check on us, and just if they, because you're not traveling in a group, you're traveling kind of basically alone. And so if they hadn't seen you in a while, they would call you. We had a couple, we had a Cambodian guy who was kind of our liaison, but another guy on a tuk-tuk who would kind of hide places along the road. And then they would just monitor where we are. So they made sure we weren't like totally getting lost, but people did get lost.
People did get lost. Yeah.
You go down the wrong road. And so you can see our route. We mentioned that already. And they give you a paper map. And
oh, wait, we got 2 paper maps, and they were totally, well, a lot of the cities were different because basically anybody can print a map. So I might print one and it might look different than yours. They gave us a book on some phrases for Cambodia, but it was hysterical. Like, how do I get to the 2nd floor to find a hat or something like that? You know, so it was more fun than
helpful.
Here's something really useful. But the thing, I think it was very similar to that adventure where you go take trapeze lessons, but there's a net. It's that it was so much fun and so much adventure, but you were totally surrounded and safe the whole time.
Right. And not only that, but like there was another van that took all of our luggage. So we didn't mess with luggage. And when we got to the hotel at the end of the day, our luggage was in our room, you know, waiting for us. And we had, you know, good food. My family, I think until we talked just recently about them, I think a lot of my family thought that like we were really roughing it, but they did a really great job of, we had nice places for the most part that we stayed every night. We had really good meals. And so they took really good care of us. This is us getting trained. But like, this is the view out one of our hotel windows. This is a place that we stayed where we had an extra day, like a resort. And even there, I don't know if I got pictures in here. Oh, whoops, go back. I don't think I got pictures of our camping, but the very first night we camped, and we camped at a little temple area, and we shared the outhouse with the monks, you know, that kind of thing.
But
yeah,
so I thought, oh, we're going to be camping and it's going to be disgusting and dirty and horrible. But we got there, our tents were all laid out, our beds were all laid out, our luggage was in there. And then they served us dinner on tables with chairs and silverware and china. So we didn't have to rough. You roughed it all day. What you did for lunch, you just had to kind of scrounge and figure out. But once you got back in the evening, you were set to go. And I think that was a very nice way to end a day. So, yeah.
And it was, we had a small team going into Cambodia because they hadn't done the trip in a few years. So there were only 4 teams. And so we just had a lot of fun with them. At the end of the day, there was a cooler of beer was just always there. And, so we just had a lot of fun socializing and, just like you said, relaxing and enjoying the evening. Now the trip is all about challenges. And so kind of like if you're familiar with Amazing Race, there's things you have to do. The key thing was we weren't racing for speed, we were racing for points. And so every challenge we were assigned to do had a point value. And so here's, like every morning we got a sheet like on the left, and it told us where we're supposed to go. The top is the directions. And then the middle part was, here's what you got to do along the way to get points. So, Janelle, what do you want to?
And then we had one other list that was for the whole week. Like, here are extra things you need to do all week long that you keep and try to get done. The challenges were all different. Like one of them was going up this big, small mountain and finding
that one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, finding a lake and being able to count a number of like inscriptions on this lake. There were things to find certain statues. There were challenges to, a lot of them made you interact with the people in Cambodia. So it was find somebody who can teach you a folk song, this children's folk song that everybody knows. And, you know, we speak no Thai, no Lao, and no Khmer, and they speak no English. So to try to find someone and try to get across to them what song you want them to help you sing, and then try to learn the language and sing it was really fun. To help a family farm was another one. It was just, what I loved about it was it forced us to interact with other humans. We had to go shopping for certain ingredients that we had no idea what they were. We had to find a certain garment and learn how to wear it. And there's Jane.
All the different ways that you could wear this headscarf. And so we got ladies to show us how they would. And then we were creative on our own. This was a fun challenge. This was this big former Watt. And so it was.
So wait, I love how Jane says that this was a fun challenge.
You're right.
Okay. She did none of it. Jane has a height phobia. And so this was to run up to the top of this ziggurat kind of a thing. And she's like, well, I don't do heights. You're going to have to run it. So you had to run around the whole thing and then run up all these steps and get up to the top and wave your arms. And you got points that time for being the fastest. We also had to draw a picture of it, and we got points for who did the best drawing of that. There's me drawing the picture.
And that was kind of nice. There was a really good balance on the challenges between physical challenges and just, keeping your eyes open and finding things, or like the artistic side of it. So, and everything was fairly judged, but, and some people got really competitive. I think that we were enjoying so much the experience. Jean Ellen and I have the same kind of values in that we just really wanted to get to know the culture and the people. So we did a lot of stopping along the way if we saw people, especially kids. And Jean Ellen brought like toys and things that we gave away to the kids. And so we took all the challenges seriously, but we didn't get super competitive about getting points, because for us, it was all about the experience.
And we came in last, but.
Whoa, I think we were third, weren't we?
Oh, I guess we were third. 3 out of 4, not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, like one of these pictures I want to show you is this one. One of the challenges we had was to take a picture of something where a vehicle was overloaded, which does happen a lot in Cambodia.
Constantly.
And so this was the first day we left. We were in the gas station, and then this vehicle pulled up, and while everybody was arguing over gas, I took the picture. Because of course we're all competing at that point, so you don't want everybody else to see it. But and you
had to find a picture of someone driving their tuk-tuk with an animal in their side cart. So that was a fun one to try to find. Here's Jane helping a woman move cows, because we had to help somebody farm.
And this is you picking
up trash.
You want to talk about the trash?
This was so fun. So one of the things we had to do was we had to pick up trash, and that night, like whoever came back with the most trash got the most points. So we're stopping along the way picking up trash, and we're in this field, and Jane and I are out there picking up trash, and these people come over, and it was several adults with their children, and it was obvious they wanted to show their children us, because their kids had never seen people with light hair and blue eyes before. And so it was really funny, because they were like pointing, look at her, and they were very charming and very wonderful. Cambodian people are very demure. So most of the times people would not approach us, and we approached them. But those folks were they just wanted the experience of meeting people who looked different than they did. And that was fun.
Well, and we did kind of stand out there because we were 2 white women, and we were driving a tuk-tuk, and people don't drive tuk-tuks in the country. And usually tuk-tuk drivers in the city are men. And so
99.9% of people who drive tuk-tuks are men. So we have to tell you the next story. Jane, do you want to say?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
So people would be driving their tuk-tuks or their cars, or usually a motorcycle on the road. And we would be with our tuk-tuk, and as we passed them, the guy on the motorcycle would look over and kind of do a double take, like, what the heck is that? And then the woman who's behind him holding on would look over, and she would just smile at us, like, over and over. This happened, that the women who saw us driving these tuk-tuks just beamed like, you go, girl. And that was just so delicious.
That was really kind of like this fun little sisterhood. I've got to tell you one thing about traveling with Jean Ellen too, is that she has to wave at everything along the road, and which isn't a bad thing, except when you're also driving a tuk-tuk and then you're trying to wave. And so I think at one point I was like, this has to stop. You have to stop waving while you're driving.
2 hands to drive a tuk-tuk. You cannot wave. Just saying.
Yeah. And then one of our challenges was to decorate your tuk-tuk with something you'd see along the way. So we decorated ours with all the trash, because there's a lot of trash along the way in Cambodia.
Water bottles, especially.
So yeah, a lot of water bottles and stuff there. So that was our decoration. But some of the teams got really creative. One of them, I didn't get a picture, but they covered it in like yellow fabric, like a temple or a monk, and made it look like a temple. It was amazing. So we had a really the fun thing about the trip too that we didn't mention is that we were Americans. There was a team from UK, and then 2 teams from Luxembourg.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And our tour guide was from Australia. So it was just this fun experience of socializing and getting to know other people from other countries.
And not understanding each other's English, so the first day you're supposed to come in fancy dress, right? So we get evening gowns and feather boas and high heels, and we're in fancy dress. Well, that's what fancy dress is in America, but in Australia, fancy dress is a costume. So people
like
are there
Halloween.
as bacon and eggs or clowns or whatever. And we totally missed the mark on that one.
Yeah. So, but the thing, like I said, Janelle and I traveled for the experience of meeting the people. And so this is our section on like our little memorable experiences, because for us, meeting the people, trying to talk to them as best we could, just being with the kids was really a highlight for us. And it was interesting. Our tour guide was a wonderful guy from Australia named Dave, and just a sweet, kind guy. And he told us, he said, you guys always come home, you end the day and you always have these heartwarming stories, because we would encounter something really fun. And we also acknowledged that because we were 2 women, we could approach women and children in a way that like someone like Dave couldn't. And so that gave us a lot of opportunities to just kind of, hang out with people. So this is one of the fun things. I was looking at this picture in northern Cambodia, in the rural area, the women wear basically all the time what are basically pajamas. And they're very cute. They're very, very cute. But the pajamas are a big thing there. So we would just hang out with all these people. This was a group. What I was interested in too is that I had only traveled to one Muslim country, Morocco. And when I was there, I didn't feel like the people were very friendly or helpful. If you needed to ask directions, and nobody would talk to you and things like that. And we were going through this area with a group of, it was a Muslim community, and we were trying to get a picture. You can see us, we're trying to get a certain kind of picture. And I was a little concerned about stopping and asking Muslim people to help with our picture. But this was these kids playing here, and their parents were up kind of like on the side of the hill and stuff. And they were so gracious and welcoming. The men took our picture. They let us gather the kids up. I mean, it was just such a sweet, sweet time. So, okay, Janelle, and you want to tell this?
So Jane is driving the tuk-tuk. We are in the jungle. There's nothing. Every once in a while, there would be a couple of houses on stilts and whatever, but we're in the middle of
road.
A dirt road in absolute nowhere. And all of a sudden I see this big concrete building with floor to ceiling glass windows. And inside are these lovely dresses. I'm like, stop, we have to stop and see what this is. And it's actually a shop that sells wedding dresses. And we're looking in the windows. Now we're head to toe covered in dust, and we're sweaty and we're kind of disgusting. And this man comes around and he says, oh, this is my wife's store. Would you like to come in and see the wedding dresses? And we are like, yeah, you should not be taking us into the store. We are disgustingly filthy. But he insisted. And then he got scarves and dresses and all sorts of things out and showed us her beadwork and her sewing. And these dresses were incredible. They were amazing. So we're chatting with him. And as we're chatting with him, he just kind of mentions off the top of his head, oh yeah, and I run the school and orphanage behind this building. And we're like, what? So he took us around to the back of the building, and we got to see the school. And we got to meet a lot of the kids who go to school there and live there as like orphans. Some of them have families, some don't. it was the most incredible experience to see all these kids and their school. And it was just because we happened to see something and stop and say, my gosh, let's go check that out. I think we almost always came in the last during the day. As far as the timing goes, we were always the last people in, but it's because we stopped and had these fabulous experiences along the way.
Right. And that was the one, what got us talking to him, looking at the orphanage, was he said, would you like to have lunch? He invited us for lunch. And we kind of said no, partly because Janelle's vegetarian. So I didn't want her to be in an awkward situation of we don't know what they would serve. And then we just kind of needed to get on the way. And he said, well, like, I'm a pastor. I think kind of like he was trying to say, I'm safe, I'm okay. And then we went into this, this school for kids. And so this is him, another picture of him and his kids. So that was that. And that was one of those days where we had that conversation where we said, it isn't about the points. It's really about the experience. And we're not going to stress the points. We're going to just get to, experience the culture. So part of the, what Large Minority does is that a portion of what we pay in the registration fee goes to things to help the community that we're a part of. And they call them meaningful travel projects. And so we participated in a couple of those. And this one was, they had purchased a bunch of school supplies and we dropped them off at a school near where we were staying, which was way out in the boonies, way out in the boonies.
By the Mekong River next to Laos. So it was, we were way far out.
It was miles and miles of the worst dirt road you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah. And these kids, school wasn't in session, but these kids all came to school that day because they knew that we would be there and they wanted to be there to see us. So that was kind of fun.
So we had a lot of fun with that. And then another project was when we had a place we stayed for 2 nights with a full day of rest at a little resort right in an island in the Mekong. And so right before we left there, Janelle, and you know more about the trees there. What was
the trees are really beautiful hardwood, kind of like a mahogany. And a lot of people cut them down to make furniture and all sorts of products with them. So they're kind of becoming deforested. So as we went, we planted in this area for this community 100 trees that will grow up and they'll be able to use them. And so it's kind of like their own community's tree farm. And what was fun was that people who've come on this journey before, their trees were there like 6 feet tall with their little signs of their team. And this is Jane and my sign because our initials are the same, JES. Our team was Just We Can, which if you're from the United States at the time, that was around Obama's presidency and his theme was Yes, We Can. So we decided to go with Just We Can. And that's our little tree that we can go visit someday and see how much it's grown.
Yeah, we can never find our way back. And so there's more pictures. Then the third thing that they invested in, I don't have any pictures of, was when we got to Phnom Penh, there was a kind of an organization that taught kids hip hop in order to keep them off the street. And so the last night we were there, we have like dinner together. And our last night, again, just to explain how nice things were, we were on the rooftop of our hotel. It was, beautifully starry sky, and we had a lovely dinner. And so some of these kids came and performed for us. So we got to see them. So that was our other one. And then I think I have, what else did I put in? Oh, I guess that was it. I know what the other thing was, is that they tried to stay in hotels and things that were kind of, had a community consciousness, I guess you would say. So the hotels we stayed in, a lot of them they employed young people from maybe the rural areas that they would bring in and train in like the hospitality industry. And in fact, the last night when we were in Phnom Penh, they even on the hotel brochure said, please speak slowly to the workers because they're still learning English and have patience and stuff. And so it was just, again, to be in part of that kind of.
It was so nice. You could actually see them training their staff, and the staff were so helpful and so wonderful, willing to really learn things.
Yeah. So all in all, that's about it, Janelle. What else can you think? that was our trip. I want to say that, like I said, we went with large minority, and they do other types of trips. They do an Amazon River trip. I mean, crazy things.
Croatia. This was our first trip doing this. So we've already planned Italy and Sri Lanka. So we'll be doing this some more.
Yeah. So I was going to say, thanks a lot for letting us share with you, because this has been a great kind of way to relive the memories and remember how fun it was. And I think when you think about it, it's such a little known type of trip that it's nice to get a little exposure, because it's just an ideal way of seeing the culture and going beyond just, sites and things. Yeah. So thanks a bunch for your time. And for
we have a question.
Okay.
Asked, was there a favorite challenge that you guys did?
Oh.
Probably hard to choose.
There is. I mean, I really loved learning the song, and it wasn't because of the challenge. It was because of the strange circumstances in which we met people who taught us this song. So I don't think it was the challenges were all over the map. I also love the one where I had to climb that stupid ziggurat thing. But I think the challenges weren't what made it the best. It was the fact that when we had to learn this song, we pull into this tiny little town. We find some child who can kind of speak some English, and we ask them about the song. They point us to somebody else who takes us to somebody else who takes us to somebody else. We finally learn the song. We all have a great time laughing and talking with one another. And that was probably my favorite.
And I think along the same line would be the one where we had to find that they told us something to buy, and it was that scarf thing, but I can't remember the name of it, that women would wear. So
Karama.
What?
Karama. We had to buy a karama, and we had no idea what that was. Just go buy a karama and learn how to use it. Okay.
So then we bought it, and then it was, you had to document how many different ways you could wear it. So that was the same thing where it was fun to find. You'd see a woman and you'd go, okay, and try to ask her, how I wear this? Show me how to tie it. And then you go to the next woman. And so you were constantly initiating and interacting with people. And that made it really fun. Those were the fun things, the really fun things. Yeah. Great. But one of our favorite, like we did about, in the first day, I think we did 4 or 5 Watts that we visited. And we started at the Angkor Wat. So that's the big one that everybody knows. And we didn't really, you and I weren't that interested in it. But our favorite was Bang Malia, remember?
Oh my gosh.
It was this Wat that had basically fallen apart and crumbled on itself. And contrary to the way you would be handled in the United States, they just kind of pointed you and said, you got to climb up this way. And you're climbing up all these rocks and things.
You would never be allowed to do anything like this in the United States because of liability issues and insurance and whatever. But we are just climbing up all of these different things and trying to find our way through. And we're climbing up with like old grandmas and little kids and all sorts of people like finding their way up through these ruins. It was very interesting.
So, and it was a very cool, of all the Watts, I think that was our favorite.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Cool structure. So
there was also one challenge where we had to find a certain carving, or not a carving, but a shrine kind of a thing. And we had to count how many there were. We had no idea what we were looking for. So we stopped all over through this huge park that had Watts. And we would look, do you see anything here you think it might be?
You know what we were looking for, Jean Ellen? We were looking for something that resembled a phallic symbol.
Yes, but we didn't know that at the time. So we were just looking for something that we thought we should be looking for. And we drove through this like national park with all of these Watts, and it was so peaceful because there was no one else around in some of these places where we were, and it was just peaceful and gorgeous. That was something I remember loving.
Those were really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. We had another question privately asked, how many days was the trip, and was it a moderate cost? So what was the cost and how long?
I think we were on the road about 8 days. Is that right?
I think so.
Do you remember what it cost, Jean Ellen? It's on their website. I want to say, I don't know.
1,200?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was it and airfare were about equal, I think.
Yeah. And so airfare was a lot. One of the things too, and then but it included breakfast. It included your housing, it included breakfast and dinners. We did our own lunches because we were on the road. Also, one thing that we didn't mention is not only did we have an ambulance and these guys traveling with us, but we had a mechanic traveling with us.
Yeah.
And so if anything did happen, you were responsible for any repair, to pay for any repairs to your tuk-tuk, which we didn't. I think somebody else did, and it was maybe $50. It wasn't much, but we did have a mechanic with us also. And that was an additional expense. So.
I felt that it was very affordable, especially since they give a lot of money back to the communities. And I can't remember how much it was. I'm sorry.
But it's on their website.
Yeah.
So
okay. Do you mind popping that website into the chat for everyone?
Okay, we'll do.
And we had another question as well. Would you do this challenge again, and do the challenges change each year?
Yes, and yes. So they do, I would imagine they reuse some challenges, but they did say that they changed the challenges, so you could do that again. You may go to the same basic route. I would imagine that they have a certain route that they like to go to. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. In fact, I think it would be wonderful to do it again. There'd be so many other things that we could see.
And what was really cool was Dave, our travel agent, apparently about a month or two before we were there, he and the Cambodian guy went there and traced the whole route. And that was the thing I was really impressed about, was how well the challenges, they were just so unique and fitting for whatever area you were in. You know, I just thought they did an incredible job of designing the challenges.
It sounds so fun. So you said that you might be going to Italy and Sri Lanka. Is it with the same travel?
Right,
so
with the same organization.
Okay, and is it in a tuk-tuk as well, or some other
Yes.
way?
Isn't that crazy? Now, Sri Lanka doesn't surprise you, and they do 3 different trips in Sri Lanka, different parts of the country, which is a teeny tiny country. But they've got one in northern Italy on tuk-tuks. Go figure. But what a better way to see Italy than on a tuk-tuk in northern Italy? I mean, does that not sound like the best?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I might enter it myself.
We'll see you there. So, and the thing is, you know, I love to walk when I travel, and I love to ride a bike when I travel, because you really get into things. And if you take a bus or a car or something, you just miss so much. But a tuk-tuk, you are right there. You smell it, you see it, you hear it, you get the dust in your teeth. And that's, to me, a great way to travel.
Yeah, well.
The dust in your teeth.
Yeah. I love it. Did you just travel solely to Cambodia for this experience, or did you guys get to travel around other parts of Southeast Asia? And have you ever been to Cambodia before?
Jane has been to Thailand.
Many times.
Many times. And I think that's why we felt kind of comfortable with Cambodia, because she had been to that area so often. We did stop, on the way home, we stopped in Singapore for a few days, and looked at that culture, which was totally different than
totally different. You know, if you know Singapore.
Two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great reason to go to a place, even if, you know, you've been there already. This is a totally different experience, I am sure. So
yeah,
about it.
Right. And I mean, and that's one thing I think I love about Southeast Asia is the people are so welcoming, and the culture is just so fun and different there. So
right.
it feels, it's just a great place, great people. So.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you guys had some really interesting conversations with locals, and, you know, maybe you want to give us a preview of that song that you learned.
I know.
One of the things we did learn is, you know, because the first time I went to Europe, I came home with one picture, because it never dawns on me to take pictures. I'm too busy doing stuff. And when we first started on our first day, the first challenges we did, we didn't take pictures of, we just did them. And the thing to note is, if you don't have a picture of it, it didn't happen. So it taught us to really record more of that. So we actually have the videos of our singing this song with these little kids, and, you know,
that's how we documented it for points. And if you lost your point paper,
Yeah, you don't get your points. So yeah,
we learned to at least take a picture of it because it had the directions on it.
Yeah.
So we needed to know where we were going. So if we lost it, at least we could make it somewhere. But we, you had to guard that for life.
That reminds me. So we started at Angkor Wat. So it's this huge place. There are visitors and people all over. We jump in our tuk-tuks and they're like, okay, go. We'll see you tonight. Well, there are 8 roads out of there. You have no idea. You just have to kind of like, we're going north, so let's take that road. And if not, we'll come back and try something else. But it was really fun because it was such an adventure. And there was so much guessing and like what happens, happens.
Yeah. You can't be too high strung for this, probably.
Right. No, you seem like you have the perfect personalities for it. It sounds great.
So I just have to say this because my little sister is here who also has the initials JES, and she was invited to come, but she's a very high-end traveler and was really not interested in having dust in her teeth and having to use squatty potties. So maybe if we do Northern Italy, she'll come with us.
She's been recruited.
There you go. She's been publicly shamed.
How many people can you have on your team? Does it matter?
2 to 3.
Okay.
Because you got to fit in the tuk-tuk. So
you can always pack in, right?
Well, we had a guy on our trip who was like, I don't know, was he like 6'8" or something, Janellen?
Oh yeah.
He actually couldn't drive because he couldn't fit into the front seat. So his partner, his girlfriend, drove the entire 8 days, which is a lot because you get tired of driving. You know, but she had to do it all because he could not fit his body into the front little compartment.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that other couple that you had met. There was a question if you stay in touch with anyone that you had met along the way.
You know, we did. I got a couple of emails from the wedding dress guy, and that was, you know, because it was so rural, it wasn't like people that they didn't speak English, that you didn't. Right. And then we loved our teams. We had the team from the UK was hysterical. There was 3 guys from the UK who were just too funny.
It kept us laughing the whole time.
Oh yeah. And so we emailed with them a little bit. I kind of feel like when we go on another trip, we ought to get them to go with us.
That's a great idea.
They were real cute and so fun. Yeah. So
yeah. And then I texted a little bit back and forth with our guide, Dave from Australia. Yeah, because we had been talking about travel books that we liked, and we kept up a little bit of a conversation.
Is anyone that does the challenge from Cambodia, or it's just people coming through Cambodia from all over?
For us?
I don't see why it couldn't be people from Cambodia. I was wondering about that too. In Italy, will there be Italians who do that? I think part of the fun though is going to someplace totally different and not having any idea what's going on. So like, I could do this challenge here in Arizona, but why would I want to? I already know Arizona.
True.
I was thinking the same thing today, Janelle, and I was thinking, oh, you could do one in the United States. And I thought, well, why would I want to do that? You know, so.
Yeah. There's a lot to discover in your own country, surprisingly.
That's true.
Yeah. Maybe if you're in a tuk-tuk, you'll experience it quite differently.
And that's true too. Yeah. They do a tuk-tuk trip in England also, but you have to own your own tuk-tuk, which is like who in England is owning a tuk-tuk?
I haven't seen a lot.
Yeah. So our tuk-tuks, by the way, were privately owned, and basically they rented them from the owners. And so the owners got like a week off while we, had to, and that's why they took care of them. We had a mechanic. And then when we got to our destination every day, we handed them the keys. We were not allowed to drive them. Especially they probably didn't want people drinking beer and getting drunk and not driving around. And then they would kind of fine tune them or just take care of them overnight. And then you got your keys back the next morning. So they did take good care of those tuk-tuks.
Yeah. And that's a nice thing. Most Cambodian taxi drivers don't get a vacation with their family. So this paid them their weekly salary, and they got to have a week's vacation, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for them and you. I don't see why not. Let's just do a tuk-tuk ride share.
Yeah.
We got a question. Did you eat anything really unusual?
We made a pact. I think in the very beginning we said we're not eating anything weird. And it was one of the challenges was to eat like some bugs and stuff, and we both said we're not doing it.
Yeah, I can pass on those points. First of all, the fabulous part about being vegetarian is you can go, oh, I would love to do that, but I'm vegetarian. So you don't have to eat a tarantula. Um, yeah.
But some of the guys did, the guys that did.
Yeah.
And then we had the one thing that was, the food was really like, because I said, like at night you're in a restaurant. One night we had a steak dinner. It was delicious. And breakfast was pretty normal for being, in another country. But lunches were a little tricky because we were on our own. And we had a delicious fried rice lunch one day that was amazing. Oh, but then the next day I was thinking, oh, we're going to find another place like this. And we didn't. And we ended up these little ladies cooking on the stove by the side of the road. And Janelle didn't eat it because it was like chicken or something. Who knows what it was. But they left like it was like stew or soup, but they left all the bones in it. And so it just wasn't real appealing. It wasn't horrible, but it just wasn't real appealing. And
yeah, and one of the challenges was to go find the local fish soup for breakfast and eat that.
Oh yeah.
So we did have the challenges to go find some stuff, but mostly for lunches we just tried to stop someplace along the way, or we had a lot of picnics where we had crackers and peanut butter
and Pringles. You can tend to find Pringles about anywhere. So we ate Pringles.
In Cambodia, everywhere you could buy soda and Pringles.
The universal snack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we had a sheet with us, and so we would just spread it on the ground and sit and have a little picnic for lunch if we could. But the guys, the UK guys, they would go and they'd find a place that was cooking chicken, and they would sit down and they would make lunch like a big thing. But we just were kind of little not so into that.
So. Fair enough. You were there for the experience, not the food.
That's right.
No, maybe not the biggest foodie destination in Cambodia, but it's fine.
Yeah, their food is pretty good. I hear Sri Lanka's food is really great.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Just throwing it out there that we are open to discussion. If anyone wants to unmute, you're welcome to ask as well. I have a couple others that I'm curious about, but
we'll stay as long as it takes.
I love that.
Well, we do appreciate you joining us, and so don't feel compelled.
Yeah.
Just here to listen. So are most people participating at once? Like, how many people can be on the road in these tuk-tuks? Like, what's the capacity?
Well, when they do Sri Lanka, they'll have how many? They say like 18 teams or something. Do you know?
So I was thinking 20. So yeah, so you could have 20 teams of 2 to 3 people.
So, but like we only had 4 plus our helpers and stuff. And so once you got started, you would maybe never see somebody for a long time. You could go hours without seeing somebody. And then you might pass them, and then later they might pass you. And our little guy in the ambulance, sometimes they would pass us. They would try to stay at the end, but sometimes they'd pass it, and they'd hang out the window and do thumbs up to make sure they were okay. And then they'd go on. But they did say, and the thing about only having 4 is that in the evening, it was like we all really kind of bonded and hung together. So I think it's a different dynamic if you've got like 20 teams. I think it's still probably great. It's just a different dynamic in that you're probably, there's probably, different groups that kind of break off and do things, but we all did things together and had a lot of fun in the evenings. So.
And then one last question from me. Is there a prize for winning?
Yes.
Yeah.
You get some sort of amount of money, which I can't remember now, off of your next large minority trip.
Great.
And then we got a flag or something, right?
Oh yeah, they gave us little tchotchkes, a flag. We got a little.
We got a Buddha.
Buddha, yeah. And the trips who came in ahead of us got bigger souvenir-y things. So yeah. They did.
But totally, it was totally all about the fun,
Yeah.
But you did get acknowledged,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
awesome.
You got affirmation.
Thank you so much. I think that might wrap us up on questions.
Great.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to say a little blurb about the Nomadic Network before we go. Can everybody, before I do that, just round of applause for Jean and Jane. Such a good presentation.
Thank you.
Super informative, and I love all your photos. It was so great. I'm having trouble finding the button that I need to find, so bear with me, everyone. Got some thank yous in the chat. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
One second.
Hey, and listen, if any of you do decide to go on a trip, like email us and maybe we'll go with you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This is the way to community build, right? That's what the Nomadic Network is all about. All right, so before we go, just a little shout out to Nomadic Map Plus. If you enjoyed this and you enjoy our presentations and the events that we're putting on, consider joining us, nomadicmat.com/NM Plus. So this is a pay-per-go for event replays, giveaways, live Q&As, exclusive access to guidebooks and such. There's a lot of really great stuff on there. So you can either use your phone and scan the QR code or go to this link. We would really appreciate that because that does fund our programs and what we're doing here for you guys. A little bit more about what we've got coming up. So tomorrow we have our book club. We have a monthly book club. If that's of interest to anybody, these are usually travel related books. This one is called Beyond Guilt Trips. It's about ethical travel. It seems really awesome. And you don't have to read the book before you go. So that's one thing that's cool. You can tune in and then you can just be inspired and say, hey, I want to read that now. So that's what's nice. That's hosted by Nomadic Matt. And then we also have some in-person events coming up, one in Los Angeles, one coming up in Austin with Nomadic Matt, and then some other virtual events. One this week called Beyond Selfie Stick Tourism, tips on how to travel deeper. So there's some really cool stuff coming up. Make sure that you check out that link for any other events we've got. Like I mentioned, this is our book club going on tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I just wanted to give a shout out. Thank you so much for attending and for being part of this community. It would be nothing without all of you attending and listening and participating, and for our awesome speakers who want to share their stories as well. So thank you so much and have an awesome rest of your day or night, wherever you're at.
You know,